Family Farm. We always appreciate when you find our channel, and sometimes it cuts out, so I'm going to say that again. We are live here at Whirlwind Family Farm. Those of you who may have saw me live about an hour and a half ago, we tried to go horizontal, and I was using kind of a outdated, it was a tripod selfie stick, whatever you want to call it. It was very jittery, hard to follow, so now we're on a gimbal that hopefully is a little bit smoother. So two things, we're trying this again. So those of you who saw the first version of this, guys, we're doing it again, and we appreciate you finding our channel. So hopefully this time we're a little bit smoother. Hopefully our mic is working well because we are outside. It's a little windy today. But we're going to give a couple of minutes here for people to find us, because we're going to talk about something that, even though it may be small, it's extremely important for you when you first start your garden this year. And those of you who have been gardening for a long time, this is probably not something that you think about or deal with much because you've been doing it for so long. But what we're going to talk about today is hardiness zones. And the USDA, years ago, and I don't know what year that they actually put these together, but there is a list of zones in the United States that correlates with the latitude of the United States. And I'm looking up here, there's a ambulance. I live out here in the middle of nowhere, so when I see an ambulance, it's something that you hope that there's no issues. Not sure what's going on there. Anyway, back to what we're talking about is hardiness zones in the United States were laid out several years ago. And here in the United States, they're for the purpose of knowing the best time, the best crops, what to plant in your area depending on that zone. So I'm going to give you an example of a hardy zone. Is that if you're in the most northern part of the United States, let's say you're in the Dakotas, you're in Michigan, Minnesota, any of those areas, you're probably in zone 3. And if you're down in southern Florida, down at the very tip of Florida, and you have a garden, you're probably in zone 10. The same thing if you go down into deep South Texas, into the, what they call the Texas Valley, down the valley area of Texas, that's also zone 10. So the best way to explain these, and I'm going to give him credit for this, it was the Epic Gardener. I saw explain this years ago, and I thought it was a great way, so I want to give him credit for this, is that he referred to it as bookends. And I'm going to refer to this growing zone exactly the same way. And so I'm going to use my zone, which here in Central Texas, here at Whirlwind Family Farm, Texas Hill Country, we're in zone 8. And so the way these bookends work is that the first freeze, and the last freeze are the bookends. So typically here in zone 8 is the first freeze is going to be around November 1st. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier, late October. There's been other times it goes into late November, but typically November 1st. And then the last freeze in zone 8 is typically April Fool's Day, April 1st. I will tell you this past year, it was on the 6th. So zone 8, the bookends are November 1st, and April 1st, and those are the two bookends. So everything, as you make the circle around the earth, those months, all of that is a growing zone from the end of April all the way up until November 1st. And that's zone 8, right here where I'm at. Now, these zones will also change depending on altitude. So if you live in a mountainous area, if you're in Colorado or Utah or Montana, those zones are going to vary due to altitude because, again, the freeze time is going to be much sooner. You may have a freeze as early as late August. You could be, I always think I took a trip years ago to Yellowstone National Park, and I heard a park ranger say there's not a month there where they haven't had freeze or snow. So they could see it in August, and of course through the winter months and spring. So that is a very short growing zone, or very short, hold on just a second here. I'm going to readjust if I put my hand up. Yeah, there we go. My gimbal here quit tracking me. So I may have overcomplicated that a little bit, but let me back up. These growing zones are meant for one reason, for you to be able to know exactly when to start the process of your seeds and your gardening. So the first thing you want to do is find out exactly what zone you live in. So you can go to the USDA.com. Right there, they've got maps that are downloadable. You can look at your region, look at your zone, look at the city you're in, and see exactly if you're in from zone 3 down to zone 10. And again, it starts up in the up near the Canadian border, where it's zone 3, and works its way all the way down through zone 10. And again, if you happen to be watching me in other parts of the world, I'm not sure how your zones are laid out, so I apologize for that. But I guarantee if you go into a search engine, we'll use Google just as a generic name. If you go in that search engine, you're going to probably be able to find your growing zone. And the way I look at these zones is just kind of like a GPS for your garden. I know that's kind of a funny comparison, but it's really explaining, or it's really showing you the best time to do things. And there's a lot of plants out there that love the cooler time of the year. And I think of radishes, I think of bok choy, I think of the different mixed lettuces, salads, of course, you can have. There's Swiss chard, all of those like the cooler time of year. And those are typically going to be the type plants you're going to start first, depending on your zone. And I use my zone as the example here in zone 8, again, which is a warmer zone. Here, we're at the first week of February. Here in about 2.5 weeks, I'm going to start some of our seedlings over in our propagation tunnel. We have high tunnels, and it's going to have the advantage of having a little bit of an indoor protection. You can still get frost inside of a non-heated high tunnel, but it gives a little bit more protection, a chance to survive. And we'll start off radishes, which like colder weather, bok choy, lettuce mixes, things along those lines. Those are going to be our first starts, because here in zone 8, our last freeze is typically going to be, looks like we may, I'm just looking here, I'm hearing vehicles. Hopefully everything's okay. It looks like we may have a fire back in our area. I've seen lots of vehicles headed that way. So, sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. But in this zone 8, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my starts in mid-February, and then we're slowly going to work in till we start adding more things through the year. And sorry, here I'm going to walk back this way so I can see. Yeah, we've got something making its way back over there. Sorry about the interruption. And that's the key. So guys, what I would recommend you do, especially of those of you who have never gardened before, is go into your search engines, go into Google, go into whatever you use when you go online. You can do it right on your phone, and go in and go to USDA, or you could just go in, and I'll tell you, as soon as you type in hardy zone, it's going to start bringing up that information, and it'll bring up maps, and you can see, first of all, the zone you're in. And once you've done that, then you can go in and say, okay, I'm in zone 7. We'll use it as an example, and then look at the planting times. And one of the things I'm trying to think of a website I went to, I think it was usseeds.com, I think is what it was. And they actually break it down by plant. They will have, I think it starts off in January, goes all the way to December, and it has a little chart and actually shows through those months the best things. It'll show broccoli, it'll show radishes, lettuce. The list goes down. It'll show you start times, when to start the seeds, when to transplant, when to harvest. And it really is a great roadmap. So one of the things that here at Whirlwind Family Farm is we try to make things as least complicated as possible. And that's really the key with gardening, is just to simplify it, especially for those of you that don't do it like I do. I actually do this it is a commercial market garden where we actually go to farmers markets. Sometimes we sell direct. And so we're doing this as a profitable garden. So we have to be very careful on our expenses. But in a small backyard garden, the key for you is to make it also inexpensive, but make it simple. And I always, one of my, it's not one of my favorite movies, but one of my favorite quotes is from the movie with Matt Damon. I believe it's The Martian. And for whatever reason, he gets left on Mars. And his background is he's a botanist. And so he realizes that the time it's going to take to get rescued or get back, he doesn't have enough food. He's going to have to grow food on Mars, and he becomes, in the movie, fictional, he becomes the first human to grow food on Mars. So my point being, whenever I saw that, I thought, you know, that's the great thing about right here, where we're at here on Earth, is that you don't have to be a botanist. You don't have to have any sort of special degree. You don't have to have a green thumb. Just know a few simple things, and it's going to make your life a whole lot easier when you garden. And hardy zones or growing zones is a big part of it, because that's going to be your guideline for the year, and you won't get things out of order. You won't, let's say I'm going to use corn as an example. You wouldn't start corn in mid-August, because it might grow and it might come up, but it's just not going to reach its potential. Corn's going to be one of those things that's going to be set in early to mid-spring. The same thing with, in our area, for example, okra is one of those things that really does well because we're in a warmer zone. Our customers like it. In fact, we grow so much okra here in this Central Texas area, I think sometimes our customers actually get sick of it because we have so much. But it's a favorable zone for it, and it really thrives and does well in that heat. Where I'll give the example of tomatoes. We have sometimes issue with tomatoes. We have to be very careful about the species that we purchase and we get, because if tomatoes start to get hot and get stressed, they just won't produce fruit, because they kind of go into a protection mode. It's kind of in their DNA. They'll make their leaves, they'll grow, and they just don't produce much fruit, or the tomatoes will just stay very green and not ripen up much. And that's one of the things that we had to really be careful with, and we found out quickly here in Zone 8, is that we had to get a certain species that is more adapted to hot weather. We had to go to indeterminate, which we trellis those, they're much taller. We can harvest off of them for up to like 4 or 5 months. And we don't plant that many determinate tomatoes. But again, what we learned here in Zone 8, in this hardiness zone, we found out specifically what tomatoes did best for us. So that's just an example. And that's how that guideline can be so beneficial for you. And sorry, I'm looking over here. We live out on a dirt road, and the road grader, that's the noise I'm hearing, is there's a road grader out on our road. So that's kind of interesting. We need it. Our road's been really rough. Sorry to interrupt with that. So guys, thanks again for finding our channel. And with everything I've said today, the takeaway message I want to tell you is that gardening doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to have a lot of specialty tools, especially in a small backyard garden. You've got compost. Let's say you've got a rake, you've got a hoe to get rid of weeds. You've got a method of watering. You've got, as I said, you've got good compost to go out there to put down. You're pretty much set to go. You've got in a good sunlight area. You're not getting too much shade. That's kind of a key as well. And a very, very small garden can really be successful. And you can grow in a very small area. And one of my famous sayings, in a 30-foot by 30-foot garden, you would be shocked at the amount of good organic vegetables you can grow in a no-till system. And that's one of the keys here, is we stick with a no-till system. So think of the hardy zone. Again, go into your search engine, look that up, look at your area. You'll get a map. The first thing you'll see is a large map of the United States, and you'll see all those different zones. You can see where you fit into it. You want to make sure and zoom in close, because hardy zones, even though it may look like you could be on the border between, say, Zone 7 and Zone 8, and there could be a big difference there. For example, if you go a little further north here out of this Texas Hill Country, you're going to get close to Zone 7, and those freezes are going to start coming earlier. You're going to get freezes in October, and you're going to have freezes that could go all the way into May in that zone just north of us. So be careful about that. And again, once you find that out, that can be certainly a roadmap and a guide for your planting season. So guys, thanks. Here at Whirlwind Family Farm, we try to have at least 1 to 2 long form videos a week where we go through some of the basics of gardening, keep it as simple and easy as possible. And the advice I'm going to give to you, that those of you who have never gardened before, is just try your first year, go through some of the basic steps. As I said, the Hardiness Zone, that's going to be the first thing, is the roadmap of when to plant, when to harvest, those things. And just keep it simple. Do not expect perfection. Those of us who've been doing it for a long time, we also find there's years that things just don't work out right. There's insects, there's powdery mildew, there's different things that can work against you. But I also say, if you planted 10 tomato plants and 5 of them are producing, that's 5 more plants that are producing than if you had done nothing. So a little success can go a long ways in a small garden. It doesn't have to be perfect. Thanks for finding our channel. I'm Jeff with Whirlwind Family Farm. We appreciate you joining us live today. Check out our channel, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. It means a lot to our channel so we can keep bringing you content to take you further along in this gardening process. And we always appreciate comments, because there's going to be those of you out there that have done things differently than me, have more experience than I have at this, and your comments are really appreciated, because I certainly do not have all the answers of gardening. We just have some experience, and sometimes knowing what not to do can be as important as knowing what to do. And that's what we try to pass along, all of that. Guys, take care. Hope you have a good rest of the week. Talk to you soon from Whirlwind Family Farm.